everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Teenager Tuesday. We are continuing our summer series, Summer Stories Parents. My name is Kristen Zimmerman, and I am the Student Events and Groups Director, and I'm here with my friend and familiar voice to the podcast, Stephanie Jordan, who is our residency pastor and leader development pastor. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. Last month, we talked about caring for our student and caring for your students' friends. And in there, we mentioned something that Hope offers, which is Regen for students. So today, we just want to take this episode to talk about how you can use this as a resource for your student and the impact it may not only have on your student, but possibly the whole family. So, Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit about what your understanding of Regen for Students was before you had your student start attending and what other parents may or may not think what it is and what it actually is?
Yeah. Well, I hope that everybody stayed tuned in. I hope that when you said Regen for Students, they weren't like, I'm not going to, because I know that it can be a hard thing.
Yeah.
I know that it's something that maybe parents don't understand. And I will even say working here at Hope Fellowship, being on staff, knowing about Regen and knowing about student Regen, even I didn't really have a full understanding. Mm-hmm. I'll say I thought it was going to be similar to like a group counseling kind of experience. And I know what Regen is, and that is not like a group counseling experience. So I don't know why I thought that's what it would be for teenagers, but that is what I thought it was. And I thought that's great. That's still a positive thing. There's a lot that can come from a student talking with other students and talking with the leader. And so I thought that was good. When my student came to me and wanted to do it, I was like, yeah, I think that's great. We had her in counseling at the time. And I thought, hey, why not? If it helps, it helps. I think that's a great option. What I came to find out what it actually is yes, they are in groups and they're with leaders, but there is so much more to it than just that it's a time for them to talk and to process what's going on with them and in their lives, but really a time for them to recognize their own autonomy in their life and have agency and really own a lot of their own things, that the decisions that they've made and their own responses. I sing the praises of it all the time. So yeah, I wasn't nervous about my child attending and wanting to go, but I was like, great, why not? I did not realize the impact that it was going to have until she was going through it, and afterwards, kind of seeing, the after effects of it.
Thank you. So I will say what I've heard, some parents are kind of hesitant to allow their students to go. And as a parent, I understand the thought process of this, but some parents think that the student will just go just to talk about them and how bad their lives are, how bad their parents are. And while they may bring you up, it's not focused on you and your child. Like, their focus is going to draw a circle around themselves, and they're going to figure out, hey, like, I got upset at my mom because she did this or she said this, but why did I get upset?
Yes.
It's more about what their reaction was and why they reacted that way. It's not talking about the parent or what the parent is doing. It's more about the student and how they're going to process, or the parent may have said something and the student took it a totally different way than the parent intended. Yeah. But because the communication wasn't there, it was more of the students like putting their, I don't want to call them crazy, but they're putting stories in their own minds that are not happening. Yes. And because there's like an insecurity there or something from some past event or something that happened at school or whatever it was. And so parents, don't hesitate, because you are going to come up.
Yes.
You are going to be written in their book. It's just part of it.
Yeah. And I will say, because you are the most important and the most influential person in their life, they are going to talk about your impact on them, good and bad. And you know what? We as people have to realize we have had a good and bad impact, and that's okay. And that through the course of this, they will realize that you are a person. You are their parent, but you are also a person. And so understanding, because you're the most influential person in their life, in every way, yes, your name will be brought up.
Yeah.
But I can also say, knowing, from personal experience, and then knowing the leaders and the volunteers who lead, it's not the focus of what's been done. It's or how, what has happened to you. It's what are you doing now in the world? Like, what impact are you making?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will also say some students will write you in their book and never share with the group about it. And so that's part of it too. And so not everything in their book, which we ask parents not to go through their book. That's very important to create trust. But you may be written in the book, but they may not necessarily be talking to the group about it. It's just for them to process on their own.
And I'll say, I don't know if I ever was in my child's book or if she ever talked to me. Well, I don't know. I never looked at her book. I don't know. And I don't want you to.
I would never. I will say there's also, going back to parents, something to think about is, I am not parent blaming again, because I've done this to my own daughter. I've done this to myself. Students are dealing with a lot of parental pressure, or just pressure in general, from parents, students, leaders, coaches, and they have this perfection that they need to achieve. And so what they're dealing with, a lot of them are dealing with now, is I want to get into a good school. I want to make the best team. I don't want to let my parents down. So the bar has been set. If I don't meet the bar, then I failed. Which they should say, hey, like, I failed this, but I can get up and do it again. But instead, in their mind, it's not that I failed, I am a failure. And so they have gone completely different way. And so thinking about it that way of, yeah, you might be in their book because you're putting pressure on them, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. That you, as parents, we want our kids to be successful. And so it's our job, because we believe in them, to put pressure on them, right? Because they're capable of it. But they have to figure out a way to feel, I failed, I'm not a failure.
Right.
And so this kind of helps with that. And that's just one instance of that.
Yeah. And I'll even say, one of the things that I've always told my kids, we are all raised a certain way. And then when we become parents, we're like, I'm never going to do this thing, or I'm going to do this thing. We take the good and the bad from our own experience being parented. And then we try to correct anything that we felt like was wrong in the way we were parented when we're parenting. And one of the big things that I always told my kids is, everything that I say and do for you, to you, about you, with you, is because I love you more than you could possibly understand or comprehend. So when you are feeling like, man, I cannot do anything right, my parents, they just are always on me, I would always remind them that. And no matter how many times I remind them, I know that sometimes they're like, yeah, right, that's not true. And they won't know that is true until later. But that is one thing about Regen for students that I found hugely impactful.
Thank you. I will remind everyone that the program is strictly confidential. So who's in the group, who's leaders, students, nobody's allowed to talk about the other people in the group or what was said in the group. But for this podcast specifically, Stephanie's daughter has already given us permission to talk about it. So just so you know, we're not just talking about it. We did ask permission first. And so I'm going to ask Stephanie, as a parent, without divulging too much, what was your experience as a parent of someone who went through Student Regen? So I guess what was the before and what was kind of the through and after?
Right. Okay, so one of the things that I'll just say, kind of going into it, that we were dealing with, like I said, we already had our in counseling. And a lot of it is because of me trying to correct things from how I was raised, and really wanting to create a strong woman who wasn't like swayed by her emotions. One of the things that we discovered as she entered into her teenage years, and really the hard things that we went through, was that I was not an open person about, like, just if you feel sad about something, it's okay to cry about it. I'd be like, well, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? And so kind of navigating that and recognizing that in myself, and that she's a highly empathetic person. She feels things very deeply. And I am like, feelings are not important. I know that they are, but just trying to say, I don't want you to just do everything based on your feelings, which is good, but also you need to feel your feelings. So then recognizing that she didn't feel free to feel her feelings. She felt like they had to be suppressed, or there was, she had to have them in private and couldn't share like the deep emotional things with me. And so, which obviously broke my heart. So we went through a really difficult time. We had her in counseling. And so student regen, when that came along, really my thing was I want to be able to talk to her. And so we had gotten to the point where I felt like if I say anything corrective, she's going to think I'm getting on to her. If I say anything corrective, she's going to feel like so I was tiptoeing around like, hey, maybe this is a good idea. And it was hard to have, which that's my job as a parent, is to teach her about and I had pulled back so much from that because I didn't want to hurt her, and I didn't want to trigger anything in her that was going to cause her to spiral into to go into like a darker place. So I was tiptoeing around her emotions. And we have a very close relationship, but we went through a season of we're smiling and we're very close, but neither of us are saying what we really want to say because I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to set anything off. And she feels like she can't be open with me because I'm like, be strong. Like you can't be run by your emotions. So you can see that's like a very spirally place. So getting into regen for students, it turned into what I started noticing was she would be more open with me. And so we would when I would say, okay, like we need to have like a conversation about this because it's my job to say, hey, this is unhealthy or this thing and so I would approach it gingerly. I would tiptoe up on it and I would say something. And I remember vividly, we were in her kitchen and there was a conversation and she said, okay, I hear what you're saying. And there was like a pause and I was like, okay. And she's like, I am going to cry just because I'm emotional. And that is how and I was like, okay, that's fine. You absolutely can cry. Like, I want you to be able to do that. You can do that with me. And she said, so we got into the conversation and she's like, I recognize what you're saying. And I understand that you're saying that to help me. I'm feeling this way, but I want you to know that I hear you and and I know that what your intention for me is good. It was this whole thing. And I was like, wow, this was crazy. And it ended really well. It was a very honest and open conversation. And she has come to me with, hey, okay, when you say this, this is kind of the impression that I get. And while I know that's probably not true, I just want to have a conversation about how that's being said. And truly to know that for her to feel like she can come to me and say that, huge. Made a huge impact. And I didn't feel like I had to tiptoe around her anymore. And she didn't feel like she had to hide her emotions from me.
That's awesome.
So I can say something and say, okay, she's crying, but I know that just because she's crying, that doesn't mean that now I've damaged her and she's going to spiral downwards.
Yeah.
There's that openness and more of an understanding of where each other is coming from. And just the ownership for her own self.
Yeah.
This is the biggest thing I say. And I know you probably have more questions. The biggest thing I have to say about it is it changed her from everything is happening to me to I have autonomy in my own life. And so codependent friendships, I will say teenage girls, it is a huge thing for them to be emotionally codependent on one another. And I saw that in some of her friendships. And there was a definite shift during the time she was in regen and even after to see that blooming in her and her saying, you know what, I am not responsible for your emotions and nothing I do is going to change what you feel with her friends. And so being able to separate from that and say, I love you, I'm not going to spiral with you and step away from that, hugely powerful. after Regent, she was very unsure. So she's getting ready to go off to college this year. She was very unsure about what she wanted to do, which is normal. She started making decisions and without fear of like, what if I make the wrong decision? I'm sure there's still some of that, but she was more confident in saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And if this doesn't work, that's okay. I can try something else, but nobody can make this decision for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this decision for myself. This is what I like. This is what I want to do. This is where I'm going.
Yeah.
Incredible. We went from emotionally codependent relationships, friendships, all of that to, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be part of that. I'm not going to be pulled into that. And from, I don't know what I want to do. I don't even want to talk about college to, I know what I want to do. These are the kind of colleges I want to look at. This is what I want to pursue. And we'll see. I just need to start.
That's awesome.
Was huge.
Yeah.
Hugely impactful.
Oh, I love to hear that. We don't get to often hear from parents after Regen. So hearing from parents is big to me as a parent, but also someone who's trying to make the ministry better and make it better for parents and students and how they can partner together. So this is really good information.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I appreciate that. Could you sum up really quickly what you think or how you think parents should approach their student if they think this is a resource they should use for their student without pushing it on them?
Right. I think anytime you can present something to a student as like, man, I want this for you. And whatever impact it has on me is whatever. Like, that doesn't matter to me. Because I love you more than you could possibly imagine. I think this would, and what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose by going and doing this? I think giving them permission to say, you can say whatever you want about me. You can, I know that I'm imperfect. Parents recognizing I'm imperfect and I'm still growing. I'm a person and I want better for you than and even what I could provide for you.
Yeah.
And so knowing that it takes a village, and sometimes that village is other leaders who are going to be able to listen and just say, guide them, coach them in that journey on discovering that they have autonomy, they have the power to make decisions in their life, and they have the power to own those decisions for better or worse.
Yeah.
Parents, you know that you want your students to own their decisions for better or worse. And so really approaching them as, even if it looks bad for me, which I promise you it won't, parents, but to say to your student, even if everything whatever it is, for you, I want this, is like a gift for them.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. If you didn't know, that is a thing from Regen. We say thank you for sharing every time. So, like I said, it's incredible to hear stories like this, to see all that God has done in the lives of our students and now overflowing into the family. We've now completed 9 semesters. So around 215 students have completed the program since 2020, which is awesome. And for parents, if you're thinking about this, the next session starts September 9th and ends December 16th. So it is 14 weeks consecutively with the break at Thanksgiving. To get more information, you can go to the registration page on hopefellowship.net/students. Please note, it's really important for students to want to attend on their own and not forced to go.
Right.
The groups just don't work if the students don't want to be there.
Because they have to talk.
Right.
That's the one thing my daughter told me about it is you have to.
Yes. There's no I don't have an answer. I'm skipping. It's, you have to participate.
Yep.
That's part of it. We are way over time. So as always, parents, remember you can do this. You are not alone. God is with you, and so are we. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.